Welcome, everybody, to Currency Roundtable number 9. We've got a new face with us this evening. It's Dean from Massabesic Gold and Silver. Dean, welcome to Currency Roundtable.
Thank you all. I'm glad I could be here tonight with you all and, have a chance to chat with you and be part of the panel.
You're going to learn more about Dean. Maybe he'll have a little extra abuse this evening from me for sure.
Definitely. What else would be new, Dan?
Nothing is new in my world. But I do want to dedicate this show. Folks, our friend, Mr. Dennis Huff, who we had on a guest on, passed away this morning. And I want to kind of dedicate this show to him. We didn't know him for very long, but the time that I knew him, I'm sure I'm glad that I did. He taught me a lot in a little time. And it's not often that you have somebody that comes into your life and makes an impression that quickly. And that was to just for currency, to talk, to everything. I was glad to call him a friend, and I'm already missing him. So my prayers and thoughts go out to his family and his wife, Brenda, who was beautiful when we were trying to talk at the end. So, gentlemen, I know all of you have been had a relationship with Dennis. Anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, Dennis actually introduced himself to me through YouTube probably 2 or 3 years ago. He was one of my earlier followers, and he told me about how he used to collect, and he was drawn to the fact on how I would always do those the strap searches, and I got him back into the hobby searching singles, going to the bank and doing all that stuff. And he used to pull trinaries and quads for me, and I'd pull double O's for him in our effort to try to match serial numbers. And he did manage to match one of mine with the trinaries he sent me. And I know that I sent him one that matched one of his as well. So that's an impossible task to try to match serial numbers. And yet me and him both did it through each other that way, all because of YouTube. Who could have ever thought something like this could bring, I don't want to say the past, but he was a collector back in the day, and we've discussed his collection. And just what a great guy! What a great link to the past with the hobby, and so nice for him to have gotten another taste of it again through all the stuff we do here.
Yeah, I like you guys. I didn't get to know him for very long, but he was so kind and so knowledgeable and willing to share information. As a matter of fact, he shared some information with me about nationals, and he and I talked about a particular note that I purchased, and it'll be here tomorrow. So I'll probably be doing a video about that pretty soon. So my sympathies to his family and friends.
Yeah, absolutely. For me as well, my condolences to the family, and he's been absolutely in my prayers for the past few weeks here. In real life, out of YouTube, I am a pastor, so just full disclosure. So it was kind of nice to get to know him. He had quite the church life. He was, had a very strong faith, so it was nice to hear. So I was praying for him, and then on the other side of things with collecting, he actually helped me out. He got me quite a few FRNs that were fancies for my little collection that I got going, which we'll talk about later tonight. And I sent him some silver certificates from what my mother had given me. Just kind of a trade for fun. And he was great. The emails running back and forth was phenomenal. And when I told him I was a little interested in error notes, he immediately sent me this lovely email telling me, these are the 2 books you need to buy. This is what you want to look for. You really want, as he put it, the sizzle. If there's the sizzle on that error, that's what you're looking for. So that was great. So he's a great man to know, talk to, and to really just be present in our lives for sure, because he sounds like he's touched all of us here.
First, I want to thank all of you for inviting me to do this. I am definitely honored to be here. And if I can say one thing that helps you four and the audience out there, just one thing that helps you with this wonderful hobby, then I've done my part. And I hope I can do that.
Well, and that leads us to really today's subject. I think it's a good one for, really different ways to collect. And Dennis, we got to see Dennis. We got to see his whole entire collection that he sold back in 1999. And he was, I think, his errors. I think we'd all agree, errors was really, I think, his sweet spot. He really liked them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But he had
definitely.
just this collection. I don't want to call it eclectic because it was extensively eclectic, from nationals to type notes to, and then really it's great to talk about them tonight because I think it lends to tonight's subjects is what do you collect and what can you collect for a lifetime that you just don't, okay, well, let's collect all the 1963 FRNs. There's more to it than that. And I won't talk about Morgans, promise. Although we have every day.
That's good.
Yeah, I'd be
every Monday. Every Monday I talk about Morgans. I don't know.
Yeah, I know it helps.
I think that's tomorrow.
I watch it every Monday morning, and it helps me get back to sleep.
Oh, jeez.
That's awesome.
I know.
Welcome to the show, Dean.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, if it wasn't for Morgan Dollar Mondays, Dan, I would never have gotten to meet you. So
no, that is true.
Good.
You know what? And that's my story about meeting Dean. I mean, seriously, it is coins, and he does such a great job. If you have not checked out his channel, and even if you're not into coins, I highly suggest you do that. His production, his sound, his video, his photography, Dean, you do an outstanding job. And what really hooked me to reach out to Dean was all of a sudden he did this video on Wilton, New Hampshire national banknotes. And there it is. It's his hometown, and he not only collected the banknotes, the national banknotes, but the memorabilia and the giveaways that the bank had done over the last whatever many decades. And Dean, that just hit me going, that's cool. That's why we collect. We collect for the story. We collect for the connection. We collect because it means something. And after I saw that video, that's when I started stalking him. And what's funny is when we first had our first phone conversation, we're talking and you get to the point of what do you do for a living? And he's like, well, I'm a pastor. And I'm like, well, shit, Dean, you could have told me that before because my potty mouth had already been going on. And Dean said, you're fine.
I've heard it all before, my friend.
Yeah, I'm a terrible person. I'm sorry, Dean. But with that said, let's poke Dean's brain. So, Dean, how did you get to currency?
Well, so like we've talked before, but I'll share with everybody here. My mother was actually quite the collector of Canadian currency. So she grew up in Canada before marrying my father and moving down to the States. So she had quite the collection of 1937 Canadian banknotes. She had, right up until the 80s and 90s when she kind of stopped collecting them. But she kind of just said, hey, you can have all these. And in it as well was some semi-collectible, American stuff. I'll just show you real fast this $5 silver certificate. So there was just some neat stuff, but I didn't know anything about it. I was totally clueless. And, when you type into Google one of these things, you get a lot of different answers. So I never really felt confident when it came to the currency, to the paper money. So I decided to dabble with the Canadian stuff first because I collect so many Canadian coins and American coins. So I decided to put together a little cheap collection of Canadian fractionals. So I ended up buying the Dominion of Canada fractionals, the 1870, the 1900, and the 1923. And I got them all under $25 each. They're in nice shape. There's nothing special, but it was a fun collection to put together. Again, I think that was another one, Dan, another video that you saw me do that you were like, hey, this is cool. He's actually doing, paper money. And then, of course, when I got a little bit more comfortable, I went for the national bank that I used to go to as a kid.
It's funny you said Canadian fractional. I just got the 25
nice. Yeah.
Canadian fractional from 1923 that just came in one of the groups that I just bought. Do you have the 1975 50?
Yes, I purchased.
What I'm talking about.
Yes. So that's the other thing. So I actually lived in Canada for about 5 years when I was going to a university, and I knew quite a few RCMP officers. So when I came across that note, I was like, that is the musical ride, and that is a beautiful, beautiful note. So I ended up purchasing one from Heritage Auctions, a really nice high grade, which, yeah, just a beautiful note. Yeah. And that's a great
Yeah.
note to start with if you're getting into Canadian, because it is relatively affordable depending on the grade. I
Yeah.
think I got a 66 and it cost me like a little under $200. So
Oh, yeah,
they're definitely affordable. Yeah.
that's well in the
Yeah.
ballpark. Oh, some of my other favorite Canadians would be the Devil's Head series. I
Yep.
actually have all of the Devil's Heads all the way up to and including the 100.
That's
So
awesome.
the fact
Wow.
the 100, that was, I never intended on getting it, but I saw one for the right price, and
That's right.
managed to find the 50. And before you know it, I have the entire collection.
That's
Well,
awesome.
someone famous said, when you see the note, what do you do?
That's right.
Buy it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Famous.
Well,
The cool thing
YouTube
about
famous.
the
Yeah.
Famous poker player.
currency, yeah, king,
Yeah, exactly.
king currency. But it is that $50, that musical ride, that note can stand on its own. I mean, and
Yeah.
that's
Mhm.
Stu. I first saw it when you flipped it in your video, and literally this was the Stu Plivek story. Yep, I ran and got it as fast as I can. I don't care.
Exactly.
Um,
I think all of us have that note now.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is a note.
Yes, I bought it
Yeah.
the next week. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a phenomenal note. Yeah,
All
you
right.
can't go wrong with it.
No, so you really started picking up currency collecting, if my mind is right, memory's right, late last year, early January is when you really took it to the next.
And fancies, yeah, I would say, yeah. And then I started going for a little bit more expensive notes, not on the fancy end, but on the, I really wanted, and this is kind of one of the things that I put on my list to talk about is just seeing the presidents, the portraits in different ways. So like we grew up, I'll just show you fast. We grew up with, George looking like this in the dollar bill. At least for me, I did. I don't know about you, Dan, but anyway.
Mine was up. Well, Ontario was looking at the 1917 one.
I was looking at the large size. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
the first
And
small
that's why I got the $20 gold certificate from 1922. One, it's cool because it's a gold certificate, and two, George is facing the other way, so it's a fun note, and it's a large note, which I had never really seen. And all the large notes I had seen before usually were in pretty poor condition. So it was, one of those things that I was like, if I can get this, I'm going to get it. And I did. So it was
interesting you
really
mentioned. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned George Washington like that. Silver Surfer put together an entire collection of all of the notes that George Washington ever was on. So it's neat that you also found that kind of route to go.
Well, it's fun. Dan, I think it was one of your videos, Dan, when you showed the portraits of Lincoln, the different portraits of Lincoln, or maybe I'm thinking of something else. But just it's so cool how they did that, and the beauty of the notes as well. It almost makes sense to kind of collect like that if you want to.
Yeah.
You don't have to, but and I know that's what the video is today. We're talking about collecting, or maybe even how to collect, but really you don't really have to have you don't have to collect like everybody else. Make it your own.
Yes.
Like Silver Surfer did. That's fantastic. That's really cool. I'm gonna go hunt for that video.
Well, I mean, Ontario, you're a coin convert also.
Yeah.
Kind of followed this same path. I mean, I think, Dean, you really put the gas on. It was in liters because you're close to Canada. Kilometers per hour. But Ontario, what was your first kind of hook note that got you said, I'm going to start thinking about buying currency?
Well, I think watching people like yourself and Stu and Silver Surfer got me really fired up about currency, about getting serious about it. So and the history, the artwork, the fact that it's large size. To answer your question, I think the large notes is what first attracted me because of the size and the artwork and the way they look and the history.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like me and Steve both have a note that gave us the hook, right?
Right.
Steve.
Right. Yeah, everybody knows that 1922 story. Yeah, the 22 gold certificate that I got just set me off on my way.
And
But
mine.
yeah, learning the stories though, that's
Right.
what really dug in
Right.
for me. All of the bigger purchases I made had to have had a story, and even if even if it was a really expensive note, if I heard the story, I would run out and get it. The
Like
Jackass,
Jackass
note,
note. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it took me 48 hours to spend $700 to buy that note.
Yeah.
So Dean,
I haven't gotten there yet. I
Yeah.
haven't spent $700 on a note yet.
The porthole note too, right, Steve? The porthole note too. Right?
Yeah, the porthole note, that's a note that I had known about forever, but didn't really do much for me, until I learned the story. And once I learned the story, you haven't spent 700. I spent 2 G's on that one.
Yeah, you spent a
I bet you did.
that's a big hole to fill, Steve, and
Yep.
it is a unique note, but it is, yeah, that's one that I put on the back burner for a while, So
Yeah.
So Dean, you're putzing along, and all of a sudden it's like now again, I'm kind of leading the witness because I was along with Dean's ride or getting abused with texts and what
Yeah.
about this and what about that, and he was going with fancies. His like talk to Dustin. Um, but at the same time, there was some questions that I could ask, but it's like, so what really drew you to fancies? So like that was the first thing I think you started collecting that I'm aware of, really spending money.
Well, no, well, yeah, the Nationals definitely. Then I kind of tipped into obsoletes a little bit, but I was always afraid with obsoletes because it's like, are they counterfeit? What is like? I think even when I bought my first one, I like instantly called Dan. I'm like, this is like tissue paper thin. I'm like, what is this? What is going on here? And Dan's like, it's fine. That's what it's supposed to be.
The thinner it is, probably the most likely it's real.
Exactly. So there's just little things like that you don't find the book, or if there is a book, it costs like 90 or $100, and it's like for the average collector, they just can't afford to start buying these huge books that may or may not have the answer. So it was good to have Dan as a resource, you guys as well for your channels, to talk about currency this way, because there's not a ton out there, and I know Dan said that many times. There's not a lot of channels out there that does currency, or they do currency well, because there is a lot of channels that just they don't have the most accurate information, or they're hyping things like trinaries. Steve, right?
Yes, I knew you were going there. Yep.
Yeah, it's just
yeah, and there is. I mean, I'll give credit. We haven't talked about his channel. It's not really in our genre, but the guy who does variety and errors. I mean, he does it respectfully. He does it the right way. Yes, I have a trinary, and he'll say it's not really worth anything, but he does call it out, and the way he does that. But I don't think that's really any of ours main collection aspect of that.
You shouldn't be doing this to make money. You should be doing this because it's enjoyable. You have fun doing it. Exactly.
A hobby, yeah. And the hunt is the most fun anyway.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
All of us, I kind of have gotten the note, and I'm like, hearing the Price is Right failure music. I'm just like, and I don't mean that. I love it that I have it, but I'm like,
yeah,
okay. And there's been a few notes like that for me, and that's okay. But because I'm still, 3 months later, you pull it out and look at it and go, God, I'm so glad I have this note.
Yeah.
Yes.
But so you got in the fancies. So okay, so that's next. Well, what's next? What's your next area? What ways to collect for you that you're kind of looking at, Dean?
Well, like I did bought quite a few obsoletes now. I like the history, and I like the from in New Hampshire. That's where I'm from. So there's definitely the nautical theme, if you will, that I really enjoy. So shipbuilding. So I've got a couple notes that have the vignettes are around shipbuilding. But I've
What-
been trying to get into, some cheaper notes. So the funny backs, I didn't have any funny backs. So recently I decided to put a mini collection, if you will, together. And I had purchased, and I have a video on that too, but I haven't done it yet. So I purchased this note, raw, if you will, as coin collectors say.
Yeah.
And it's just a nice, because if you don't own one, you can pick one up.
Yeah.
I picked this one up for $28. This is
Ooh,
the guy
right.
had XF on it. I don't know if it's quite XF, maybe it's a little less, but again, grading is new to me as well. And then from the same dealer, I purchased this note.
Nice.
And again, this is just the funny back, but it's fun. And so you get the one with the big blue seal, and you get the one with the big blue one, which kind of went along with what I wanted to do, because I was given this note and then I picked up this note. So there you go. Like that right there for me is a little collection right there. That's it.
Right.
And that right there, all these notes, well, one was given to me. This cost me $160 for everything. And one's graded 65 PPQ. You don't have to spend a ton of money, which I like about that.
Ontario, you
just did a video like that, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought up the mini collection, Ontario, different ways to collect. You don't have to have this huge, massive, whatever signature collection.
No, I've got I pulled out a couple of things here. This is a series 1934, district.
That's cool.
That you got 5, the 10, the 20, the 50, and the 100, all from Cleveland, all from the Cleveland district, all series 1934. So something like that, as you were talking about earlier, you don't have to spend a lot of money on it. I mean, it's $185 face. You probably can buy them all for $300 or less.
Did you
That's
put
awesome.
the collection together, Ontario, with the all of the same district for the numbers for the original 1928s?
I did the same thing for the 28. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, they were all numbers, but I did not try to get all the same district though for that.
Okay. All right.
That's the other thing I did was I got all 12 going back to the 1934s. I got all 12 of the districts.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Districts.
That's a great video. There's a really nice note that I9. That's a beauty.
Especially that, right?
But no, that's a great video, folks. Go back and watch Ontario's again. I'll drop the link in below. That's a great video. It's just when you put it that way, different ways to collect.
Doesn't cost much. You pick this up, you'll pay a little more, but I wanted one that looks really nice. So anyway.
Your star notes too, Ontario. I love your star notes, and that's a whole area of collecting too. If you just wanted to collect star notes,
large or small,
correct.
All right. So with the mini collections, I mean, that's where. Let's go around the horn a little bit. Let's go back to Steve to start out this. Let's talk about, okay, so is there genre or mini type, medium type collection that you are trying to work on? Or what was the first one that you did? Yeah, I don't care where you start. Let's just talk.
Okay, because I'm not sure if I want to say what I'm working on now, because that'll just make it that much harder for me to snipe them on eBay.
Right.
Anytime I talk about a note, all the prices go up. So I'm gonna buy them first, then I'll tell you what I'm looking for. But it was neat seeing what Ontario was putting up there with all of those small sized from the same district. Now, for me, I wanted to get one of each denomination from the 1928 series, but I didn't necessarily need them all from the same district. So that was the way that I went about collecting the 28s, simply one of each denomination. There's no right way or wrong way to do it. Literally, what we're doing is just throwing out ideas for everybody watching as to ways that they can collect. There isn't a wrong way. It's just how we've done different things. Aside from doing just the small size notes, you could also do the Federal Reserve banknotes from 1929. Once again, I didn't bother trying to get all of the different Federal Reserves. I simply got all the denominations. I do believe that when I finally put it all together, I had like all but one from Chicago. So I bought the one from Chicago. So I have the complete Chicago set.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But I did do a top 10 completed sets video, which shows 10 of these small subsets that I consider completed, just to show, like we are doing now, all kinds of little ways people can collect. You don't have to get it all at once, and you don't even necessarily need to follow any kind of parameters. But if you do want a little bit of guidance, that's what this is all about. This is all about what are the small little things that we do. And like I said, those were the two that I started with because I found them really unusual. The district from 1928 and then the Federal Reserve banknotes.
Well, and I know mine, I mean, you talk about Silver Surfer. I don't know if we did it, but I put together my first collection and my first note that got me into it was the worst coin dealer experience I've ever had was seeing 1923 silver certificate.
Oh, boy.
But I bought it, overpaid, blah, 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 don't care, still have the note, it's on my wall. But it was the George Washington type collection. So I went back and got the 50-cent fractional and the $20 gold and all the different, the $2 18.99. And that $2 18.99 led me to another type collection, the mini porthole. So I'm like, okay, so my second collection was $2 20th century banknote collection, small, large. So, and I even bought, I had it's a terrible battleship from San Francisco. Last time I ever bought a non-Minneapolis note, by the way. But it was affordable because they were still expensive. We're talking 2001, 2002 here. But it was just a cool collection. It was a way to collect different type notes, obviously, small, large, and fractional, and put them all together. To me, that was really, really cool. And I framed them up and they look great on my wall and I can see them. So that was those were two of my first collections that I put together.
Cool.
That's awesome.
How about you, Ontario?
Well, I like these will be shown in a video that I've got coming up here soon. Things like this. I don't know if that's or not with the low serial number 69. Yeah. Well, I like finding, because I was a numbers guy, I like finding stuff like that. You have a super radar with the one again.
Super repeater. Yeah.
Super repeater, sorry.
So much right. In zeros and sevens.
That's right. And I think and then something like this, where you have a radar note 2070. Okay.
Hey, it's a trinary.
Yeah,
it is a trinary. Yeah.
There it is again.
It's worth $8,000 more.
Yeah. There it is.
That's cool. That is
awesome.
That is cool. Ontario, I think they're making fun of us, but that is awesome. Those notes.
Stuff like that. Cool.
I just love it. And again, no disrespect to the $1. But literally, I could choke on it if I see another one. Sorry, Steve. I still watch your videos. To see a 5, 10, 20, Steve, when you pulled out 100 fancy. I can't remember what it was. A modern day. It was
a repeater.
Yeah. It's so cool. And I know you can't strap search for them, but I just think maybe because we do see the ones. And again, I still am wowed. As much fun as I make of Dean and his zeros and sevens and occasionally threes, it does look cool. And I think the notes from a non-fancy guy that you're choosing and the notes that Ontario just showed, if you're going to go that way, make them good, make them pop so that you can see that serial number jump off to a person that's, I'm not that into it, but I do respect it and appreciate it.
Yeah,
that's an excellent point, Dan, because I really think there is some eye appeal. I know that's a coin term, but there is definitely some eye appeal when it comes to the serial number. Just because it's a radar, if it's got all these weird numbers, it just doesn't catch your eye immediately. It just doesn't demand the same price. It really doesn't. Like I purchased a radar or actually two radars for $40 in high grades. But it was because of that. Then you suddenly do zeros and sevens, and all of a sudden it's a $200 note. It's like, what's happening? It's a little much.
But you can understand it too. I mean,
yes, like I can understand it. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the funnest collection that I've put together, and it's still an active collection, was back in 2020 during the COVID. I started putting together my World Banknote collection. That the videos, that nobody watches because it's World Bank. And I'm
Look,
still
20
going to punish
people just
everybody with
clicked
them. They're coming. They're not going away. But it is the funnest collection, and I got like 250 notes for less than $1,000, including shipping. It was so much fun to put together, and it still is because somebody does a new one. Hey, there's a new blah blah blah. Like Great Britain is going to be putting out a new 5-pounder this June, like in 2
Yeah.
months.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So it's like I got to update that for that. And it's a really fun collection. So there's things like that you can do. I have the signature collections of all small guys for all types. Sans stars. I did not include stars in that. I've got the ones from 1928 all the way to today to twos, that's complete. And then $5, I'm still looking for it. That there's still like 5 or 6 of them out there. They're not expensive, they're just not hard. And then add to that, I'm only looking at Minneapolis.
Yeah, when you open up a currency book, it's a very daunting process. I mean, when you see 1 or 2 cool notes from somebody's collection in a video, you think, "Oh, this is going to be a cool hobby," and then you get the book, and it can just be so much. So yeah, it is a good way to to narrow your lane, like you do, Dan, just by going simply with the Minnesota notes. That's a great starting point for new collectors like that.
So, all right, I recently might have completed a mini collection, and I'm going to put a video out on this because it was the first heritage auction I won. So I'm going to show that process.
Right.
Anybody cares? And I've been trying to win notes on this note for over a year. And so, but it was the $50 1922 gold certificate.
Oh, yeah.
I got the 10, had the 20, had the 20 before the 10, and now the 50. And I don't know if I'll be able to afford the 100. I don't know if I want to spend my funds on the 100.
Yeah.
And the 500, there's just no way. I'd have to, sell Stu Plubeck to do that. That's only a down payment. So, I think I just completed a little mini gold certificate collection, and that's okay. You don't have to do it. Having the 10 and the 20 together, it's so cool to just see them both.
Yeah.
So cool to see it.
And think about it, you could get the small 10 and 20 to go with it as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you are putting together these little sets, even if they do seem a little pricey, well, then just get one in lesser condition. You'd be surprised. You can get some pretty ugly notes that would be thousands of dollars if they weren't ugly, but you can get them for 100 or 2 if they're in rougher shape. And would you rather have one, or would you rather tell everybody you're going to get one eventually? That's
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
So, Dean, thoughts on what you're, I kind of want to know where you're going next. I'm curious.
Well, Steve has actually already seen one that I purchased. So my latest fancies have been the monochrome. I really want to put together the monochromes with all fancies, all 0s and 7s. So he saw the $100 bill I bought, and I also got a 5 with the same exact serial number.
Oh, cool!
I missed a 20 with the same exact serial number on Heritage, which I'm kind of bummed about. But that's the thing. I'm only willing to spend so much, so I really look for the deals. But it is hard, especially with fancies, because they are really hot right now. A lot of people are collecting them, and that's fine. But you can find good deals out there. I recently picked up a silver certificate with a fancy that's for $45. It was quite nice. But the monochrome set, that's what I'm gonna try to put together. So I've got some on my watch list for a 50 and a 20, and if I can do it, I'm gonna do it.
Don't you find
interesting? It's interesting that you brought up specifically the monochrome set. Now, I believe the monochrome set is the modern day educational set. I mean, the educational series came out in 1896 and it was gone in 1899. The monochrome set series came out in 1996 and it was gone by 2004. Some of them were gone as early as 1999.
Sure.
So yeah, it really is. And none of us bothered to save them. And yeah, you can get lucky and find one at the bank every once in a while, but it's probably trashed. So for
Right.
you to go looking for the fancies in that,
Yeah.
that is a nice tight little,
Yeah.
little area of a
They're not
collection.
making any more of them.
I approve.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Now,
and
since I said it though, I'm not gonna be able to get them. No, just kidding.
Exactly.
Yeah. Don't you feel like too with the auctions, or I do, I feel like it's kind of feast or famine.
Yes.
Yeah.
You'll spend a lot of time looking for something and it doesn't come up, and then all of a sudden, 6 notes will come up at one time that you want. It's
Exactly.
I guess that's life. But
I mean, some guy in South Carolina will send you a link. Do you have this?
yeah,
Thanks. Thanks, Ontario.
you're welcome.
No, I do actually appreciate it.
Keep those links coming. Right.
Please do so. But he's got one sitting right now, and it's still there. But it's a $10 red seal from Minneapolis,
Oh
and
wow.
Yeah.
it's a graded 30. I'm pretty sure it's graded 30, and it's a
Yeah.
875. The price is right on. I mean, it's not
Right.
just a fair price, and thanks to Ontario for helping me check that. But that ties into that's going to be a very mini collection because I have the $5 red seal. It's the Minneapolis, and I'll probably be done with a 2-note collection.
Right.
Nice.
Because the 20, that's just going to be, I mean, keep in mind, folks, I completed the gold certificate, small size, 1928 collection. The 100 was the most expensive note I ever bought, and it was $1,200. And I'm guessing it's a 25 tops, 20 probably. You guys know I'm Mr. Frugal Cheap. If it looks good, I'll buy it. I just don't have that budget. But it completed the collection, and it's a really cool collection of 4 notes.
Well, think about your 5 and 10 again. Do you have the blue seal 5 and 10 Minneapolis? The large.
Oh yes. I'm sorry. The 4. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. See, think about those 4 notes. That makes a nice little group
Yep,
of notes. You
it
got
really
the 5
does.
blue, the 5 red. 10
Yeah. I
blue,
mean, just
10
add,
red.
so again, when you got friends that just say, "Hey, go spend a wheelbarrows full of my money," great. It is appreciated, though. It really is.
Yeah.
One of my favorite 2 little mini collections. Love the 1917 $1 legal tender, the 1907 $5 wood chopper, and the 1901 $10. Yep, there you go. Those
Yeah.
3 notes. You put them together. I'll put them on my shelf over here. They just look stunning together. To see all 3 of those together, it's just awesome. It's really cool. It's one of my favorite little mini collections.
Yep.
That's
It
awesome.
looks like a tribute to the 1800s, even though they're all 20th century notes.
Right. Yeah,
Exactly.
they were made up until like 1925. All of them were issued then.
Or yeah.
So a lot of ways to collect. Dean, you've got a couple more ways.
Well, I was just thinking from what you just said about little bit of the legal tender there, is just collecting nickname notes. Like if you just want to say, okay, I want to collect the notes that have nicknames, like the funny back or the bison or whatever. I think that's okay to do too. If that's what you want to stick to. And I think you guys actually pointed that out in the roundtable with Ben the Coin Geek, that a lot of coin collectors do drift that way to the nickname note. But again, I think whatever gets them started or gets us started into collecting notes, I think that's, it's phenomenal. So,
and with those early, I got to jump on because with those early, all 3 of those notes, those legal tenders are big time nicknames.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Wood chopper, the bison, and the
sawhorse.
Yeah. And the sawhorse, I got one right here. I'll show you. I just picked this up. It's in nice condition. And it cost me a grand total of $135. It just
Right.
it's not not breaking the bank to own it.
Well, that one too. I mean, that's the one you got from the shop there.
Yeah, the dealer, and apparently he is a grader or a former grader for PCGS. I did confirm that, so that's pretty cool.
Okay, we got to get.
Yeah,
It'd be
We
very
need to get him on.
yeah. Yeah, I think if I can, yeah, maybe I can if I reach out to him, or if you guys want to reach out to him, whatever. Yeah,
You do
he's
it.
a really nice guy.
We're lazy.
Yeah.
You do it. Um,
And
well,
Dan,
I mean, the thing with that, when Dean saw that note and he, was in there and he gives me the video of what he saw in the coin shop, and it's like when Dean, I mean, that absolutely has got to be an uncirculated 60. It's got to be. It has to be.
It looks like it. I know you're not gonna be able to tell
beautiful.
from here, but and I'm gonna do a video on it anyway. But it really does. There's just really, I don't see any folds. Again, I know I'm a newbie to trying to grade, so I will be doing a video on that. But yeah, it's just a real beauty. And I felt confident enough talking to Dan, you know, to buy it, not being graded, and having bought other notes from this guy and the quality of the notes that I had bought from him, I felt comfortable doing it. So, and it seemed like a great price.
So a little off topic question. Is it super weird for you to like look at banknotes or look at anything collectible without a loop?
Actually, yeah, I'm not having to do this in the light.
Right. I don't
Like
know.
you should look at your note a little bit in the light, but yeah,
Don't
you're
you-
not having to check the luster.
You got one
or
of
the
these?
stripe.
There you go. Ben the Coin
There
Geek.
you go.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
from the
Shameless
Coin Geek.
plug. Shameless plug.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
you just need that. You don't need the Hubble telescope. Anyways,
That's right. That's right.
all right. Let's keep going. Any other ideas to throw out? I got a couple, but go.
Well, I was going to say, you started to talk about obsolete notes, and I showed you guys that book that had all the vignettes on the obsoletes. Collecting obsoletes in and of themselves is a huge and daunting task, but obsoletes allow you to pick out particular things that you may like and focus on that. Now, I think Ontario has taken that to an extreme. Ontario, when it comes to obsoletes, what is it that you look for in obsoletes?
Well, I like to, because I like coins too, I look for notes that have coins on the currency.
Mhm.
So you'll see the silver dollars on here. And of course, everybody knows this note. I love that
Not
vignette.
everybody knows that. That is awesome.
The,
Yeah, that is a cool one. Yeah, from Vermont.
dollar. But things like that are what I look for. That's my collection. But with obsoletes, you could collect, I don't know, trains or ships or famous people or famous events, or there's a lot of ways to go. And you're right. There's so many paths you can take with obsoletes.
I mean, for me, my
Yeah,
two questions for obsoletes going, I started with a president's, before Lincoln, even though they went two after Lincoln because they kept on producing obsolete banknotes well into the 1870s.
Yeah.
But I'm through. There's one I'm not going to be able to get, and I don't care. Probably two, maybe. Martin Van Buren's only on one note, but he is out there, and it is somewhat affordable. So that turned in. I'm like, well, I got all these states. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a state collection for the 48 states
Yeah.
because Hawaii and Alaska did have obsolete currency, but it was done on like walrus skin, and they're like
Oh, wow.
40 in the peak. And I'm not
Oh
kidding.
boy.
So they didn't have, and I've stretched that out to depression script from literally 1907 to 1933 because some states just did not issue them because they didn't become states until like 1909, like the Dakotas, the Wyoming, states like that. But you can still find stuff. So
Right.
it's my fun of putting together a pretty, it'll be a 48 note collection, plus the presidents, but it is so much fun to do. It's just,
Yeah.
and like going back to Steve, I think, and me and Dean were talking offline, Steve, about the whaling note that you got.
Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
Stoughton whaling note. I saw that and I'm like, I gotta have this.
Yeah.
It's just not a note that with over 15,000 obsolete varieties out there.
Yeah.
That's almost a one of a kind. You just do not see that out there, and that was part of life back then.
Right.
It doesn't matter what we believe now. That's how people survived back then.
That whale oil was electricity. That was
Oh, yeah.
what they used in their lamps. A lot of people don't know that. You know,
But what
Was
I
that
will
on
say,
Heritage, Steve?
I don't know. I think I got that on eBay, believe it or not.
Oh, okay, good. Because
Yeah.
I thought I maybe was bidding against you. I didn't get that note. I
Nope.
bid on one and did not win.
Oh, pretty sure that came off of eBay. But
Yeah.
as we're talking about obsoletes, with as many of them as there are, and with as many different ways that you can branch your collection when it comes to obsoletes, if you choose to go that way, I highly recommend spending the $70 on the Don Kelly book on obsoletes.
Yeah.
Just because one note could save you that price. You could see a note for $200 or $300, and when you bring out the Don Kelly book to the person who's selling it and say, "Look, it's 125 in here," and they give it to you for the 125. There, now you're even. You just saved $75 on the one note, and now you can buy the rest of your life, with that note for free, or with that book for free.
Great point. And don't be afraid. I mean, it's like the obsoletes again. The greatest thing about eBay is if they got that return policy, and if you
Right.
don't think it's a real note, you can return it. All right, yeah, you got the rigmarole of doing it. Maybe you have to pay shipping. So what? The odds of getting a fake are slim. Not going to say it's not going to happen, but a lot of them aren't going to be graded. So with that said, I'm going to throw out Confederates.
Wait, before you move on, I just wanted to ask one question, because this is a good question. Dan and I had talked about this before. So, like with obsoletes, when you get into that and you start Googling things, I got onto this forum, and these guys were talking about the fact that if it's a remainder, it is not a banknote because it's not signed and it never circulated. That blew my mind, because I'm like, that is some deep philosophical stuff right there. If a chair has never been sat in, it's not a chair. Like, I just was like, what that this is like mind blowing to me. A remainder is not a banknote because it never circulated, wasn't signed. So anyway, go ahead, currency guys. Let's talk that out.
Okay, I will defend currency guys by saying, what's a planchet? I don't know what a planchet is.
There's a planchet in the currency world that was used on military certificates for America.
A planchet isn't a coin, is it?
No,
correct.
Okay, even though it's a round little piece of metal.
Yeah,
correct.
It's not a coin.
Well, you could also say a coin that never circulated wasn't a coin.
Correct.
Think about that.
Well, there's two things that I'm going to step in and be the history guy. One, legal tender status. All right, so there's that. But so the guys, the forum was that guy was correct. It is not a banknote yet until it has been signed. Right. So that's correct. They must have been ex-coin guys, because literally, who cares?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, one, you can get them, and it's funny because a lot of the obsoletes that are signed, they kind of go for more money.
They do.
Yeah.
Not only that, a lot of the obsoletes don't exist in any other form other than counterfeit because they were all redeemed.
They are all redeemed. Good point.
I have a whole collection of counterfeit obsoletes.
Okay, I was hoping you were going to go there, and
there you go.
The weirdest, coolest, eclectic collections.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for the Secret Service to bust in and take you away in cuffs. I'm actually crossing my fingers for it, but that's nothing. How
as long as they don't
try to use?
How did I get? Well, it's not. I don't want the Secret Service.
Don't go there. Just why do you collect them? That's
why? Yeah. It's obvious why I collect them. They're so cool.
They're so cool.
Yeah, but I stumbled across one on eBay, and I'm like, I know it's fake. They're saying it's fake. This is neat. I saw one at a show. Actually, the 1862 $1 that I have, I found at a show, and I was stunned. What a cooler way to show what a counterfeit is than to show it side by side with the real note. So I've got the 1862 $1. I've got the 1899 Chief note. I've got a $10 1914, and I've got a bunch of the obsolete notes that are counterfeit, as well as one or two counterfeit CSAs, Confederate notes. And I'm surprised they don't have more of the Confederate notes, because we flooded the Confederacy with counterfeits. Now, Pierre Frick has a book, just an amazing book that goes through every little detail of every aspect of every printing of every Confederate note. And
Wow.
in that book, so Pierre Frick's book on the Confederate notes, it's an amazing book if you collect Confederate notes.
Yeah.
Hardcover book and a beautiful book.
And Confederates it's something I've got 3 notes. They're actually up on the shelf right behind me. But that's all I've got, 5, 10, 20. I've got that, whatever. I don't even know the T numbers because I'm not into it. And I don't think really any of us are totally deep into Confederates as far as having to collect this and that. Steve, I know you have a lot, or a lot is probably the wrong words, but Confederate is a wealth of history, a wealth of collection. It's a huge, it's like kind of like Obsolete. It's not as big, but pretty big.
Another rabbit hole.
Technically it's a whole other nation's notes. And even though it was only around for 4 years, there are over 65 different notes. The type 65 is the last one. So you have 65 different notes to collect there in that collection, and some of them are extremely expensive. Some of the originals, the 100 and the 1,000, those were done to support the war.
Yeah, the Montgomery notes are huge.
Yeah.
So, we're gonna kind of wrapping up right now as far as time. I mean,
Well,
couple things. Let's go around the horn one more time. If you've got anything like you'd like to say, hey, this is another area to collect that we haven't covered.
Well, Steve wanted to, and it kind of goes along with the CSA notes there. You wanted to talk about the Civil War fractionals.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just dumped that on you.
No, that's
no. That's okay. I've got quite a few of those. No, it's funny that you call them the Civil War fractionals, because we were talking about CSAs, but those weren't from the Confederacy. Those were the Union ones, because there was no change, and that's a whole cool little branch of history in and of itself. Because there wasn't any change circulating, because everybody was hoarding precious metal, they turned to the post office and said, "Hey, help us out." So you had the first issue of postal currency, which actually looked like notes with stamps on it, but they weren't stamps. And they did different denominations there. And before you know it, I think they ended up with a total of 5 different series. The first 2 were postal currency, and then after that, they became known as the fractionals. And that's a whole nother way to go. And if you're a new collector, that's a great way to go, because right now, those, I think, are undervalued. There aren't a whole lot of those out there. They aren't that expensive. It's fairly easy to put together the set. There's quite a few of them in that set. But if you want to get ahead of the game, that's a way to do it right now.
They are
absolutely
a little interesting series, and a couple of them have really good stories. Different characters on them too. Different portraits, very different portraits of who's on those. So they are good.
The other, just real quick, you can cut this later, Dan, if you want, but it's really funny to hear the history with the American fractionals and then the Canadian fractionals, because Canadians loved their fractionals, and you could actually turn them in for gold. So it was just, the history there is just wicked different compared to what was going on here in the States with the fractionals that most people didn't like. But anyway.
Yeah, forced to use them, but they didn't. They wanted those coins.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Steve, anything else that you've got to add that ideas to collect areas?
I'm gonna go with the colonial notes, or the continentals. That's the word I was looking for. Colonials and continentals. Yep. Those notes were actually printed. Many of them were printed before 1776. So many of those notes are older than the country itself. Just to have a piece of paper that's that old is pretty cool. And you can find those in the $100 to $200 range. To think of having anything that's that old for $100 or so, I mean, that's pretty reasonable to have a piece of history that potent at your fingertips. You can get them from all 13 colonies, or you can get them from the Continental Congress of the United States. You know, just to have a note dated from 1776 that says United States on it is a pretty cool add to your
It is
collection.
really cool.
Yes, yes, yes.
Ontario.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground tonight. I don't think we've mentioned this. This is a fairly easy set to put together, and it looks good together. The small size legal tenders, a 1, 2, 5, and the 100.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, that's a nice little group. Probably the 1 is the harder one to find.
It is, yeah.
You know, the 2, the 5, and the 100 you can find pretty quickly, and they're not terribly expensive.
Dean.
You know, I have exhausted my list other than just some Canadian notes, but I would say, you know, keep an open mind. Like, you know, like on my list that's left, I have 2 Canadian notes. There was only 1 for the year. You know, talk about just getting 1 note and completing a collection, unless you want to get into signatures. But I think the point I want to end with is just that, you know, keep an open mind of what you want to collect with paper money. You know, there's so much, and yes, it might feel overwhelming, but if you start with what you are gravitating to, what you're liking the look of, then go for that and kind of go from there. You know, just love it.
There is no wrong way to do it.
No,
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah. You know, every week I end my videos in a very corny way. I always say, you know, continue to enjoy, because if you're not enjoying the hobby, you know, just go. Get out.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a real good point.
True.
obviously I treat food that way. I just probably too much, and Steve has seen that with the meat attack. A couple ones that I wanted to bring I wanted to bring up. One was like just collect $5 notes. So you brought up the $5 small size. The seal colors. Get one of each of the seal colors. There's like 6 of them.
Yeah.
One, if you want the gold certificate, then you move up to the 10 to do that. But you've got the dark seal, you got the lime green seal, you got the regular seal, you got the red seal, you got the brown seal. Those are really cool when you see them all together. And again, it's affordable. The 1915, 1918 Federal Reserve banknotes. These are my favorite large size banknotes. And you can find these, you know, the Battleship is always going to be the tougher ones. But for the other ones, with the exception of the 50, we all know the story. And I'm going to go back. Dean, thank you for reminding me of the Canadian. Steve, you already talked about a few of the notes. You know what? They are some fantastically cool notes. And I don't know why. Obviously, I'm doing the USA versus Canada versus Mexico thing.
I know the Mexico's awesome.
They are too, but it's like that Canadian. They are some really cool notes. And I don't know what it is with me, why the fascination is that here's a country that has less population than California, and they're producing this beautiful currency that kind of looks like ours, but it's not. And it's so colorful. And the vignettes on the backs of those are unbelievable. And it's just an interesting little, sidebar, which I like sidebars to collect.
Yeah.
So,
and they're affordable. They're affordable.
That's
the other thing too.
And you go after some of the large size notes on those too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are really super cool. So you can get King Edward the VIII, the guy who abdicated on the $2 bill and on the 5 small size, I think. So
yeah,
anyways, it's a ton of fun. Many ways to collect, and it doesn't have to be these huge, big dollar. And you know what? I like displaying my currency. It's like, I'm just saying there's cool things in, trying to display them. I think it's fun to bring things in and out of my collection and just put them on the shelf and put them back after. Play with your money, right?
Play with your money. There you go. That's good.
All right. Anything else this evening, gentlemen? This has been fun.
Yeah.
I've exhausted my list too. So.
Yeah. I was just going to end with one little story because this was fun. I was on Heritage bidding, texting Dan because what would Dan do? So I would always text him, and he starts laughing at me in the text, and then he's like, "You got to get in this Zoom meeting with me in Ontario because you and Ontario are bidding on the same note."
our lives are super exciting.
Yes, exactly.
We create the excitement together.
It also
Exactly.
shows how small the currency family is.
That's also true. Good point. Good point. Yeah.
Yes, it is. All right, gentlemen, it has
Hey,
been. Oh, Steve, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay. I was just gonna say, you don't have to spend money. You don't have to spend big money on your collections. You don't have to
That's right.
spend any money on your collections.
Right.
I got this gigantic book here
Yes.
that everybody always wants to see, and this is simply all the Federal Reserves and all the notes
Exactly.
from 1963, from every reserve from 1963 to date. So
That's awesome.
I got all these for face value, and I pulled them from circulation.
Yeah.
So I mean, you don't even have to go to shows. You can simply go to the bank, and now you're a
Yeah.
currency collector. Yeah.
Have you
That.
right.
have you filled every hole yet? I mean, have you got?
Oh no. But I
Okay.
mean, I
Well,
don't go hunting for them. I simply do my own searches,
Yeah,
and whatever I find, that's the way I'm putting it together.
and that's
Could
what-
I go to a show and probably fill the book tomorrow?
Oh,
Sure, but there's
don't
no fun
do
in that.
right.
No fun in that.
But that's a good point, Steve. Before we go, sorry, and you can cut this if you want to, Dan. But you have found radars, you have found repeaters, you have found really high quality fancies, and you're paying dollar for dollar.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for people to know too. You don't have to go on eBay and spend hundreds of dollars on a fancy. You can do
Correct.
exactly what you do, and it is the work, but it
Right.
can be done. Can be done.
That's the hobby. The
Exactly.
the thrill of the hunt.
Exactly.
Genuinely the thrill of the hunt. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. I hope everybody had a good time tonight. I did. Dean,
Yeah.
thank you.
I did. Thank you.
You definitely are going to be back, despite me not. Whatever. I won't go there. If that's personal, I'll leave that away. But I also do want to say, Dennis, you are missed, my friend, and appreciate what you did for us. And we hope you're in a good place.